Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us from wherever you're joining us in the world. And make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick, whether you are watching this on YouTube or you are listening on iTunes or Stitcher. Make sure you hit subscribe so you catch all of our episodes. And you also get to join us at Mile High in September this year, September 23rd to 26th, where our guest today will also be presenting. So I am super thrilled to introduce our guest, Dr. Lona Cook, who has been on the podcast before and has also spoken at Mile High several years ago. So we're glad to have her back. She practices in Western Wisconsin, Cook Chiropractic. She graduated from Northwestern in 2009, and she has just published her second book. Yes, I said second book. Her first book was Just Tell Me Where to Start, which is everybody's question. And her new book, Reclamation, The Evolution of a Hot Mess. I'm sure we will talk about both. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Lona.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Danny. I'm excited to come back out to the Mile High crew.
Yes, and we're excited to have you there because of how much you contribute to so many different areas of chiropractic, which we're going to touch on several of them. And we love having people on the podcast as well as at Mile High that are actively involved in chiropractic in a multitude of ways, and are contributors. So that's one of the things I think of when I think of you. So I super appreciate that about you. And starting out, let's have some people get to know you a little bit better that may not know you as well as I do. How did you find your way into chiropractic?
Oh, I like that question. I thought that I found my way into chiropractic just because growing up, we went to the chiropractor and I liked her. And I thought it was pretty cool that she was helping people with her hands. So in 11th grade, I think I shadowed her, and that was a done deal for me. I wanted to do it. The backstory I didn't know, and I've told a few different audiences this, is my grandfather, who would have been born in 1919. He had been adjusted as a child, and then he got my parents, my dad was adjusted, and then I was colicky, and so they took me. So it was really something in our lineage. And it wasn't until I was a chiropractor that my grandfather shared this story with me. He was in a car accident when he was like 15 or 16 years old, and he was in the back seat, and his head, he went launched through the windshield and ended up going through the front windshield and was knocked unconscious. And he also lived in a boarding home at that time. His dad had died at a young age, and his mom wasn't around to take care of him. So he's in this boys' boarding home. Anyways, he's unconscious in this wreck, and these people come up on him and this car accident, and they say, well, who's this kid? He needs to go to the hospital, obviously, but who's responsible for him and who's going to pay for it? And they said, oh, he doesn't have any money, but the chiropractor in town knows him. Take him to his office. So they took my grandfather in an unconscious state to this chiro's office. This would have been in like the 30s. And he stayed there for 2 days, got adjusted, woke up out of his like unconscious state, and was fine. It's a pretty crazy story.
That is an amazing story.
Yes.
And the kind of things that, like, it also speaks a lot to changes in the world in terms of healthcare paradigms and views on healthcare and what you would do, what you wouldn't do,
Right.
what chiropractors would do in the 20s and 30s, without them necessarily thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
So, that's so interesting.
Yeah. It floored me when he told me that story, because I was already practicing. I was like, why did you not tell me this before? And he's like a guy that didn't mince words. So he just was like, I don't know, I didn't think of it. And so it just was like jaw dropping to me that had happened to him.
I find that really interesting. So now you've been in practice for how long?
12 years.
12 years. Wow. And um, I want to talk about some of the things that are going on in chiropractic politics and things in 2020 and 2021. However, first, can you share a little about your first book?
Oh, sure. When I first got out of school, I also have a background in creative writing. One of the things that I just felt inspired about was that I wish during school I would have had a firsthand account to read during school that was like someone who opened from the ground up and, started seeing people enough to the point that they had a thriving business to pay off student loans, because we know students are always thinking about the student loans. And I was just the same. So what I did as I was growing my business was I got to about year 2 and decided I should go back and look at my planners and put together, like, what did I do 6 months from opening? What did I do, 1 month from opening? What did I do? And put together kind of this firsthand account of opening your brick and mortar and how do you start to do it and then do it successfully. So the first book is called Just Tell Me Where to Start, because I wanted someone to just tell me how to do it. Obviously it's going to be unique to everyone, but it's my story of opening this first practice.
That's so exciting. And I'm sure it has helped many other people open their first practices.
Yeah, I hope so. Every once in a while I get a message from someone that's like, I just read your book and it's giving me courage to open my practice, or little things like that. When I wrote it, I honestly didn't know if anyone else would ever even read it. I didn't know what to do with it. But I felt like I should do something with it since I had put it together.
Cool. Very cool. And what was a highlight for you in terms of putting that out to the world?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think holds people back is that we always want to know what the next thing is going to be, or before we do something, we want to like make sure it's the right thing, so we don't actually step into the next action because we don't know all the different things it's going to require, and so it keeps us frozen. And so looking back on that, I think one of the coolest things is seeing, like, I didn't know what it was going to do for me. I didn't know that by writing a book it was going to open up avenues for me to get connected to people like you, Dr. Danny, and speak on stages and learn from amazing chiropractors and other healers and other thought leaders in the world. But it's opened so many doors for me. So again, it gives me courage to know that you don't always need to know why you're doing something. If you feel led to do it, it's probably part of your purpose in this world, and it's going to open up a door, but you might not know what that is.
Yeah. And we can't always know all the doors that will open, but if we keep
Mhm.
knocking, it kind of helps.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
So now in that, I know also you've been very involved politically in chiropractic in many different areas from the get-go, which is something that we encourage at Mile High. We want people to be involved in their states and with national organizations and supporting the right schools. If you consider yourself a vitalistic chiropractor, and the foundational values and principles are foundational to you, being engaged in politics is important. What are some things that are gone on in chiropractic that you've been involved with?
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. Especially this past year, and seeing what's happened in states, and which states had, associations that were rallying for the chiropractors to stay open and give them courage and know what to do to keep themselves in good standing. It was pretty easy to see which states had what type of associations. And the associations, people don't want to pay their dues, or they think, what are they doing for me? You don't have an association, you don't have people lobbying for you. And that's a big deal. And so for me, I think it's urgent at this point that if you like the way that you practice, that you are also involved politically, so that we can ensure that the way you practice is what it is in another 5 years, and another 10 years. I know I can only speak for myself in our state here in Wisconsin, but we've had controversial things happen out here. Like there's 2 associations. I'm so grateful that our newer association, the Chiropractic Society of Wisconsin, formed now almost 10 years ago when it did, because had we not, there are so many things that could have occurred in our state in the last decade that are not aligned with vitalistic principles. And so again, it goes back to what we were just talking about. Sometimes you don't know why you're saying yes to some of these things. I remember sitting at one of their first formation meetings, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I just felt like I should help this cause. And now looking back, and especially in 2020, having an organization that backed us up and said, you stay open, and, here's what you say, and here's what you do. And really went up to bat for some of the people that got thrown under the bus during COVID craziness. That was worth its weight to have a collection of people, of like-minded chiropractors, as well as a lawyer and a lobbyist and things like that. So that's just at the state level. Nationally, we need the same things to just be united. We don't have to agree on every aspect of how we practice, but there's more similarities in many of us than we know. And so I think now is the time for us to really, wrap our arms together on some of these things, so that, again, we can preserve the right to practice the way that we want. And really, it's about the people we serve, So I know it's easy to say, well, I'm taking care of my people in my practice and I go to work and that's how I give back. But it's like, what if all of a sudden something gets passed and we can't do it the way we said we were going to do it? Wouldn't it have been nice to be proactive politically before we get to that point?
Right. Right. And there's already so many lines that have been crossed. And, having more of those is not something that any of us want. And you said something about, hey, I'm practicing taking care of my people, and that's how I give back. And I know there's many that think that way. When you're doing things in the profession, there's time, there's talent, and there's treasure. So like even something simply of saying, you know what, I can donate one adjustment a week or two adjustments a week or a month to a school or to research or to my state organization. That is even the simplest step that you can do, right? And if people just did that, then there's the people that have time or talents in different areas, maybe political conversations. But finding a way everybody can give back. It doesn't have to look the same to everybody. It's going to look different. But again, there's ways to do that are important.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I think that's a valid point. Is also, we all understand more of the energetics of giving back too. Like, your practice grows when you start to donate to the causes that, feed into this system of bringing chiropractic to the world. So I encourage all of us to be giving to organizations that support what we want to see happen in our profession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So now you've written another book, you overachiever, you. And so your second book, Reclamation, is it your second book?
It's my second book that I wrote solo. So yes,
Okay.
I like
All right.
writing. Oh yes.
Reclamation. Okay. The
Mhm.
evolution of a hot mess. Tell us about your inspiration with that.
Yeah. Well, I felt like I kind of sit with frustrations of mine sometimes, where it's like, why do I feel frustrated? Or what is sitting right here? Like, I know there's an idea coming to me, but I'm not getting it. And I think for the last year, this book has been kind of brewing in me, or now a year and a half, of sharing more of how did I get to this point of understanding more of an innate lifestyle, also understanding your life is happening through you, not to you. You're a conduit for this energy that creates the life you experience. And how do I, just like I wrote, just tell me where to start to help people, I wanted to do it more in a format that wasn't speaking to chiropractors necessarily. This is speaking to anyone. And I'm just using my own life experience as examples of basically a crash course in waking up to some of these truths of how life and universe works when we understand more of these energetics. So it was just exciting for me to try and put my story out there. I also felt like it's the first time being very transparent about some of my story, the good, the bad, the ugly, but using it in a way that hopefully will help people feel like we're so similar. We all struggle with lots of different similar things that we go through. And that's also where we birth ourselves into the next evolution of learning and consciousness and growth. So yeah, it's just to open a bigger window of conversation around these ideas. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Excellent. And, will it help people connect with navigating their life through the craziness of the last year and a half?
I sure hope so. Again, it's like this conversation of, is life happening to me? Am I just a victim to what's happening? I don't believe that. I think we're all creating it right now and we're all in it together, truly. So it's like the human organism is all going through some sort of major transformation right now. It's
Mhm.
pretty exciting and kind of crazy.
Yeah. And sometimes reorganizing to a new level, a
Mhm.
new can look messy.
Totally.
And
Yes.
I truly believe that that is a big part of what's going on in the world. And I think there's an aspect of there's lots of theories and lots of stories. Some
Yep.
are true, some have basis on truth, some don't.
Mhm.
But just might sound good, and people run with it. But I think that we don't really have a true image of everything that's going on, other than it is a little bit of a mess. And I truly believe in the human spirit, and that in the upper up leveling of evolution of humanity, and that there is a reorganizing going on to something that's greater, even though it may look unusual for a while.
I was just talking to my good friend, Dr. Devin Verana. I know you've had her at Mile High this morning, and we were just saying, like, okay, it's like the world, the people in the world, we've all been pregnant for 10 years or so. That's the time span we gave it, but I'm sure it's been longer than that. And this past like 16, 18 months is like, okay, we're starting to labor now. And now we're literally like ready to push that baby out. It feels like it's just getting tighter and more interesting and a little more crazy, but it's like, things are changing now. Like it's like every day it feels different. So I don't know, it's exciting, I think, as chiropractors too, because when before have some of these conversations been so mainstream, it's just it's an interesting time.
Yep, yep. And so, what has you also been involved with things in your area, your schools, because schools, kids have had a very interesting time through, and parents through
Mhm.
2020 and 2021. What are you involved with there?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you about that project. So now it's been about 6 years ago. Um, I mentioned earlier that sometimes I get these frustrations, and I think this is just me not receiving the like information that I am supposed to do something with. But it sat with me for a while that I felt like I needed to do something in my local area to talk to somebody that makes decisions for other people and helps other people, but I didn't know who that person was. And then it kind of dawned on me to reach out to the superintendent. And at the time, from my viewpoint at the time, I was asking her if she would like to bring in chiropractic care to her staff. And we are in a large public school district here. And so it was like divine timing where they were going through some changes. They wanted to create more of a wellness model for their staff. And so it worked out well that we came in and started to support them in that way. Well, after the staff had access to chiropractic for about a year, some of the administration started to ask questions about, could we do this with the students? Could we bring chiropractic care in for the kids? And I honestly wasn't there yet. Like I wanted that, but didn't know what type of red tape was around it. I didn't know what that would look like. And so after asking some of my mentors, like, what would they do? How would they start to do a project like this? We started at one of the elementary schools. This would have been in 2017, I believe, and started with a group of about 20 kids doing chiropractic adjustments during their school day. And it went really well. And it was working with a lot of kids that had a lot of troubles at school or were labeled in some way where they were in under a special ed classification. And that grew. And so we started then at 2 schools, and now we're in all the elementary schools. And Dr. Amanda is full time in the school district. She practices here with me, and has grown this thing like you wouldn't believe. We've got 2 districts that just reached out this morning about potentially bringing chiropractic into their areas. So it would be other chiropractors working with them. We just help them make that happen. But we see it like, other things get brought in to help students thrive during their day or have a better chance at doing well in their school day, why not chiropractic? And Dr. Heidi Havoc is actually helping us with writing this up as a case series. And then hopefully we can do some research with it too, since it's kind of a unique scenario where the students are right there. They make their appointments because they're right there. It's just a perfect setting for us to really understand how this influences children. So it's pretty exciting.
Wow, that's really cool. And again, seeing a vision of something more that you can contribute and engage in creating opportunities out of what's around you. Now, as you know, this year for Mile High 2021, we are focusing all of the presentations on the art of chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
And our team really came up with that because looking around the world through what's gone on the last year,
Mm-hmm.
of all, like, when there's a friend of mine, Joe Merlo, said
Mm-hmm.
something who I have a lot of admiration for. I really feel like he's an amazing guy, him and his bride, his other half. And he said something to me that, hey, when the world goes dark, okay, we bring light, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's my focus and my practice through this, is that I'm going to bring light to our community, and thinking about what we do. We can argue till the cows come home about all the injustices that have gone on and what's right, wrong, vaccine, so on.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can, and not that you stop doing that, but you can focus on bringing light. And what's the thing that brings the most light of what we do is the adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we have the focus on the art so we just all do better with these, however it is, and up level our ability in that area? So what can you share with us today about the art of chiropractic?
Oh, I love what you just said there. Well, I again go back to what we were talking about earlier, like we're all conduits, right? And so if I'm placing my hands and giving an adjustment, I certainly better try and clear myself as well. I don't believe it's just about our hands. I don't believe it's just about this
Right.
physical
Yes.
thing that we're doing. And so as much as that does matter, and I'm not trying to discredit like the technique and the application of the adjustment, I also think a lot of emphasis needs to be paid on your own state. If
Yep.
I'm sitting here ranting over vaccination or whatever topic that is, and in anger and frustration and all of that, then the conduit that I carry right then maybe isn't in the best place to be putting my hands on someone for healing.
Right.
So that is part of the art to me, is like, as your system is primed to bring more light in, you just naturally aren't, I don't think, pulled into some of these things where you could just go down these dark holes. You see them and then you get yourself right back to like that square where you're most helpful, which is in the light. So when you're in that state, then you put your hands on someone and do your technique, because you're connected first before you're going to help them connect. And that is a muscle that needs to be worked. If you're not someone who's good at getting yourself in a good place, it's probably no other thing is going to help you probably in your practice more than working on getting yourself in a better state before you go in and adjust people, because people can feel that. The energy between the patient on the table and the doctor is just as real as energy that's healing them. So
yeah, no, I agree. That's part of the art that often is not discussed, because people will talk about the line of drive and which technique, or Gonstead or upper cervical, but who you're being when you touch that person and it is vital, and it's not something that's necessarily discussed. My dad used to say, hey, the healing should start before the person even walks into the door of the office, right? So and that also is true. You're creating an oasis, an environment. So super exciting to have you share about that at Mile High. When you think of the art of the adjustment and you think of subluxation, and the damaging effects of the subluxation and the nerve system being compromised, and the positive effects of delivering an adjustment, what kind of, how do I say this? What kind of reverence do you bring to both?
Well, I really like focusing on the reverence for what the possibility is. I feel like it goes back to the light and dark conversation. I would rather talk all day long about what's possible for you when you're getting adjusted and your system is starting to reorganize itself, or the patterns are changing, and the possibility that lies ahead. And so that's a huge part of what we focus on here, is just that reverence for the potential in everyone, and I don't hold that, they hold that. So us as doctors that are getting to influence other people, I think I read something or listened to something the other day that was talking about, like, a teacher should never teach a child that they don't see as a genius. And I feel like a chiropractor should not put their hands on someone unless they can see them as whole, or that they can see them as healed, whatever that may be for that person, because we don't control that. And that's the reverence I have, is that I am not smarter than the body. I'm not smarter than the system. I'm not God. I'm here to do that work.
Yes. And that's such a beautiful place. That's the thing when I think of the major premise, right? I think of the major premise. To me, it resonates into two words, and other philosophical diplomats may or may not agree with this, and that's fine. But to me, that major premise is about two words, which is trusting life. Is like, we trust life has a plan, that life is coordinated. We don't always see the vision of that, but I trust that I have trust in life as compared to being fearful life, right?
Yes.
Right. That's the essence of chiropractic, and the essence of the art is that we are trusting that I'm going to apply this force, and this amazing intelligence is going to be able to work with that.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And so to have us focus on that as an event, man, it's about time.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And I think people get excited about that. I think we all felt this year, is that our offices now more than ever became places that were light compared to so much else happening outside that was about fear. And so more than ever, it's like, let's speak life over people. Let's show them their potential. Let's, even when they don't see it, we still can. This is big work that we're doing in the world right now, just by the fact that our doors are open for those who are meant to be here to come on in and receive chiropractic adjustment, tuning them up so they can go back out in this crazy world right now. It's really awesome. And so I think one of those things that maybe you don't realize when you become a chiropractor, at least I didn't realize how big some of the stuff that we were doing is for humanity. And that's where the reverence comes in, is like my understanding now sees it much greater than I did 10 years ago. And I can only imagine what I'll feel in another 10 years as I keep learning and shedding some of this educated mind that sees things in the small spectrum when it's really much bigger than what we can even grasp.
Yes. Yes. And, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, because I think it's been a shared experience among the majority of chiropractors, especially ones that have the principles at the focus of their heart and soul. Did you have the experience of practicing serving people through 2020 and through 2021, through all the ups and downs and instabilities that were thrown our way? Did you have the experience of, like, I am really honored, blessed to, like, this has been the greatest time to serve people through?
Definitely. And I think all the more important for us to be grounded in these principles. I mean, we said it so many times. throughout this craziness is like, gosh, I'm so grateful to know what I know and to
Right.
have this profession where like we're so rooted in these things, and we can reach out to our brothers and sisters like yourself. And when you are starting to bend, oh, someone's going to help you reroute down and know what to do for the next moment. It's like, what other profession had this past year? And so then to be beacons for people, because we're not just easily swayed by the wind of fear, essentially. Man, yes, I totally felt just in awe of the fact that we were blessed with this profession.
Yeah, we would go home from the office just really um, in great grat so much. I mean, you're always grateful to serve, but like it
Mhm.
was even on a higher plane because people were
Mhm.
so grateful to get care. You
Mhm.
know, we had
Yeah,
times when the numbers were low, but the gratitude was way high. You know,
right.
through it.
And then also to see people who had like not gone out of their house for anything else really, and then they'd come and see you, and it almost like is mind blowing of like
Yes.
you haven't seen family members and you're in here in so long. It's just, I think I also just didn't have perspective of how sheltered in place some people really were.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I had that too. We had people that like hadn't gone anywhere, like not even the grocery store,
right.
but went to our office, and that was very moving,
Hmm.
for sure. So, and again, even more so why I'm excited to have you at Mile High and share your heart around that. So, hey, is there any last thing that you'd like to share before we close out the podcast? Where can
Uh,
people get your book?
Thank you. Yeah, it's on Amazon. I think I'm just so grateful like that we're having Mile High and these places, these hubs we can come to where you get life breathed back into you, where you're around, I'll just say, as chiropractors, like we feel like we're coming back home into normal, right? Like being around other chiropractors, especially in the last year and a half, man, those are life-giving weekends. So I'm just excited. I think it's more important than ever that we're, coming together, just to be able to go back into our practices revved up and hold steady, because who knows what's coming
Right.
next, you know?
Right. And being in community,
Yes.
being in community and being in connection. So thank you so much for being with us on the podcast.
Thank
And look forward to seeing everyone at Mile High. I'm so thrilled to have you on stage, Lona. And remember, if you have not reserved your seats, do that at milehighchiroregistration.com. You can find all the details there. It's the weekend of September 23rd. And definitely grab Dr. Lona's book. Grab both of them. Are they both on Amazon?
Yeah, they both are on Amazon.
Cool. There you go. Grab both of them, and we look forward to seeing you on higher ground in September. And Dr. Lona, thank you for being politically involved, educationally involved, while serving people, and also while having little ones. Right?
Mhm.
Not everybody steps up to all those things. Not everybody has to, but I really want to acknowledge you for giving more.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
Well, hey, we're on a mission, right?
Yes.
So thank you. And we look for, hey, everyone, keep changing spines and minds and lives with chiropractic. See you on higher ground in September. Milehighchiroregistration.com.